Visit irishheart.ie. Prevent a stroke. Feel the pulse. Supported by Pfizer Bristol Myers Squibb.
You ain't shit! I wish I was 50 years younger and I'd kick your ass.
Well, fans can be the harshest critics, you know.
And they often are.
A wife is often the harshest critic of her husband.
I thought I was invincible. That's what you're trained to believe as a sports person.
There was 4 million people in Ireland who knew much more about managing football teams than I did. When it comes to music, I can spoof with the best.
Your sporting career is the best time you'll have, and you know you have to hang on to it for as long as you like, because everything else is pretty crappy.
And this is not lies. Stephen Rothschild has never spoken to Jimmy McGuinness in his life.
All right, you're very welcome along to our Saturday panel. This week we are looking at 3 sports, mainly known as American sports, I guess, that are trying to gain ground here in Ireland, and give you some info as to how you're getting involved, and also some of the maybe issues that smaller sports, minority sports in this country face in terms of getting funding and in terms of getting people involved in their sports. 53106 is the text number. We're live on all our social channels as well. I'm delighted to be joined in the studio by Steve McDonnell, who is the Communications Officer for the Irish American Football Association and head coach of the South Dublin Panthers American football team. Also by Adrian Kelly, who is the Public Relations Officer with Baseball Ireland, and Aaron Guli, who is the President of the Irish Ice Hockey Association. Thanks a lot for coming in, lads.
Good to be here. Thanks for having us.
I got to say, Adrian, you're the one who's come most well prepared, not just with your notes, but also you've actually brought the full kit and everything we would need to go out playing baseball straight after this.
Pretty much. Couldn't bring the mound in here, but, you know.
Do you go everywhere with a baseball bat? It's a little laneway, Diggs Lane here where we are in Dublin. Do people look at you a little bit funny?
Feel a lot safer.
That's just wandering around Dublin these days, is it?
Yeah, there's a story behind each one of these, so maybe we'll get to that a little later.
Yeah, we certainly will. Thanks a lot, as I said, for coming in. Steve, you might talk to us first about the Irish American Football Association. How big is American football in Ireland? Because I know from a purely watching American football and listening to podcasts and people with a deep-rooted interest, it's massive.
There is a huge interest, and like, you know, that's evidenced in the fact that we've got Notre Dame and all those guys coming back. You know, I know it's probably a money maker for them, but they you know, there's a real interest to get in there. At the minute, like, our association is about 1,200 members. We've 22 teams. It's all Ireland sport as well. So obviously around Dublin and around Belfast, those are where they congregate. But there's a massive interest at the minute, and I think a lot of it is down to, or has been down to over the years, that American football has been on TV. Like, you know, going from the 80s when we started, football was on TV. You know, things like Sky have been a massive influence, bringing kind of Red Zone and making it more palatable that people can watch, and it's, you know, constant action the whole time. So in the last couple of years, and obviously, and I'd be remiss not to say Madden football as well, like, that has really sparked a lot of interest. But from that as well, it's the presence has grown. You've seen, and I know we have now in a position where we've quite a lot of good athletes as well, rugby players, good GAA players and stuff. They see the sport as what the challenge it is physically, but also it's a bit more of a, you know, a tactical thing that you don't get it in quite a lot of other sports, you know. So it's got something for everyone. And I think as a result, that's where the charm lies, that some people see the really physical end of it, and those guys who are wanting to test themselves in that way. And then you've people like me who aren't the physical guy, who are trying to do all the mental work.
Yeah, I was going to ask what type of people you're getting actually playing out on the pitch. Is it players who have been playing Gaelic football, or maybe still play Gaelic football, play rugby, and are looking for another outlet at different time of the year, or how's it working?
Gaelic can be tricky because we cross over the season, but rugby, well, obviously we need a field to play on. And there's a couple of sets of proper yellow uprights in the country, but for the most part we're playing on rugby fields. So we would begin our season March, April, when the rugby starts to end, and we do get a lot of rugby players. And obviously it's the most natural combined, like, you know, we're out there tackling, we're out there ball carrying, you know, it's something where there's a lot of skills transfer. So I know as a coach and as somebody who's trying to get people involved, when somebody tells me they played rugby, I'm like, great, you know, you can go straight in. But that being said, I know from my own self, when I started to play American football, I wasn't playing any of those sports. I was I didn't decide to go and play five-a-side with the lads. I looked a bit, and I'm kind of, I was into the sport anyway, but found there was a team going, and it was just, you know, from Googling it really, and I ended up finding a team and get going. So, you know, I know it was, people hate me, but I was contemplating taking up golf, and this is how I slightly went another direction, you know.
It was a little bit safer.
Yeah, exactly.
On that physical side of it then, because you look at American football and where it is right now, and the constant issues surrounding the physicality of the sport, the injuries, the concussion problems that have been there for decades but are only really coming to light now. Is amateur American football a very similar game to what we're watching on TV? Obviously, it's
a lot
that bit slower.
Yeah.
But is it as physical? Are the rules the exact same?
We would use the NCAA rules, so it'd be the college game rules. So there is slight differences. You'd see, talking about the obvious ones, like you'd see, let's say you're watching the NFL and you see those guys dragging their toes when they're catching balls out of bounds. We get to keep 1 foot and 1 foot. There's little differences. It's the same game, more or less. It's slower. We don't have any video replay. So it's slower speed, but the game goes a lot quicker. We don't take 3 hours to play, most part. We don't take 3.5 hours to play a game. In terms of injuries, I would imagine it comes to a same element of, like you'd see with a highly physical game like rugby, that what are the equivalent injuries? I actually forgot to bring it with me today, and I feel bad now how well prepared Adrian is, but on we have our coaching license, and on the back is the concussion protocol. So we are prepared for that kind of stuff. It is a thing. You can't say that, you can't talk about American football these days without being conscious of it. But that being said, it's not like we're having a concussion every game or every training session. It's something that has had a lot of attention, and we have reporting procedures and all that kind of stuff. It's taken very seriously, but it isn't happening at a huge rate. But it is happening. So the education, and we get a lot of it from our coaching directors who would make sure that we're equipped to deal with it.
Do you find it's something that's putting people off the game?
No. I think what happens sometimes is a guy would get in, and to be honest with you, it tends to be ACLs. Like, that's a tough injury for a guy who's very active or anything like that. Gets an ACL injury, and now you're looking at a year worth of recovery. That tends to be the one I've seen that drives people away from the game. That they come and they play, and something like that happens, and it's probably a more serious injury than they've had playing soccer or playing GAR or whatever it does along the way. And that can be the one that puts. But I don't think that it's a huge amount. Like, it's not carnage. We're teaching them to play the game properly. And as the rules have become, emphasised, I was saying this outside, the rules have emphasised safety a little bit, so the play is changing to match it. Like, for example, now that targeting rule where people are getting, you're not able to hit people up here at all. People are changing how they play the game now, and people are changing how they tackle now. Like, I know on our team anyway, we brought in a rugby coach to teach us how to tackle. It wasn't take your head out of the tackle, teach us how to tackle by how they do it in rugby. It's just as effective. Get the guy on the ground. So, the game is modernising with
that feels like a skill they really haven't mastered in American football at all.
Well, if you watch, and unfortunately when you watch the NFL, they don't tackle. They hit. The guy takes off at full belt and puts his shoulder through the guy's knees.
And if he can't tackle high, he doesn't even attempt to tackle low.
There was a great clip there from Thursday night where Derek Henry's the Titans running back. He went 99 yards the other end, and these are professionals not tackling him, making a Now, it's slightly different, I think, from, I talk a lot about similarities in rugby. Rugby, you tend to probably get people texting in and say, I don't know what I'm talking about. They tend to be coming at you. American football, you're chasing them down, you're coming at different angles, and you're getting blocked, somebody's in your way, and there's a little bit of a difference to it. But yeah, unfortunately, the way American football has gone in the States to an extent is guys, like, it's a very short lifespan. They end up playing this game before they end up professionals. So, and oftentimes a guy could take it up, play at high speed, and I was only in college for 2 years getting the top end of coaching. Then he arrives in the NFL, and all the rules that have come in to make the game safer, as in they're not practicing as much. That's why we're seeing the scores go up. There was a couple of weeks ago, there was a game between the Rams and the Chiefs. I think it was the highest scoring game of all time. And I saw that and I was like, nobody was playing defence. No, in fairness, defence scored that day too. But
Aaron, talk to us then. The Irish Ice Hockey Association. I see some problems straight away for an ice hockey association in Ireland, which is our lack of ice and our lack of ice rinks. Where do you play ice hockey in this country?
Well, for the most part, and this is more, I suppose, the senior players will play in Belfast. There's an ice rink in Dundonald in East Belfast. That's predominantly for adults because the times that they make available, for example, there's a game tonight between the Ducks and the Hawks. That doesn't start until 10:15. So the game's not over till 11:30 at night.
Right.
So
it's whenever the rink closes to the public, that's when you get in.
Yeah, well, they finish their public skating and then we kind of go on. But you can't really have kids that late because, by the time they get out, it's midnight. If you're talking Dublin, you're getting back at 2 a.m. We have a club in Kilkenny, that'd be well after 3. So that's not conducive for kids. This time of year, we have the holiday rinks that open up. So, For example, the two predominantly here in Dublin that the kids are using, there's one in Blanchardstown and one in Tala. So quite the opposite, then they get up very early in the morning and go down and use that before the public.
So there's no danger if I go to Dundrum after Christmas and embarrass myself that I'm going to get clattered by some 18-year-old doing a little bit of practice?
No, I mean, not unless you want to tell me when you're going. I can come down.
You can sort it out.
Shoulder,
probably more of a
nudge,
chance because he has to get on.
All right, so your teams at this time of the year, actually, it's boom time for them, that they can actually go 20 minutes and find an ice rink and get up bright and early.
Yeah, I mean, look, our three main youth clubs are Dublin, Kilkenny and Cork, so each one of those, they'll utilise those rinks Saturdays and Sundays for the 8 or 10 weeks that they're open, you know.
So if you're walking through Blanchardstown and you're looking at the ice rink at 8 o'clock on a Saturday morning, you might see a lot of
You'll see all the
lads
kids
tearing
out there
into
playing.
each other.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's perfectly fine.
We were down there this morning, so that's why I had to have my Red Bull before I came in, because getting up at 6 in the morning is not good for me, you know.
And what do you do for the other 9-10 months of the year? Like, how do they hone their skills?
Well, we have to utilise inline hockey, which is on the wheels on the hard floor. So there's a lot of similarities on the skills that they can kind of work on: passing, shooting, positional play. And we also have our national development team, which is for our under or 18s and under. And we usually have a couple of trips per year for those. They travel all over the world. We just had our under 18s in Switzerland in July. We had our under 12s in Korea for a pre-Olympic event. So you name it, and we've probably been there.
And what sort of numbers have you involved in the sport?
It varies. This year will probably be between 300 and 350 total members. So probably give or take half of those will be youth players. In the boom time when we had the Dundalk rink open, we had about 1,100 members.
Right.
So if we can get a rink back open again, I'm sure our numbers
Ease of access is the key to numbers.
Yeah.
Right. Adrian, you might talk us through then what you brought with us from Baseball Ireland.
Sure, yeah.
They all have a meaning.
Wow. To me. So this is a baseball, actually. We had the under-18 tournament, European Championships A pool in Grosseto, Italy this year. And this is the ball that was caught in the final game against Germany when we beat Germany. And that's probably our greatest ever result, you know, in Baseball Ireland. It was established back in 1995. And there has been a focus on the international game. And the clubs have lagged a little bit behind. So we're trying to work on that and getting the catch up now. But that was the ball that was caught to end the game, actually.
Very nice.
Baseball's a great sport. You can hand out these balls at momentous events, you know, home runs, that kind of thing. Yeah,
sure.
That's right.
And what about the bat?
This is a Marucci bat, expensive bat. They were given these actually last year. We played in the tournament in Phoenix, Arizona. It was 5,000 players played in the tournament. We got hockeyed. But it was good to be part of it. So it's 316 teams, all levels. So we had a major leaguer playing with us actually on that team, Simon Pond, who played for the Red Sox and the Blue Jays before.
Okay.
So that was an international club team. So it was great fun out there, so it was. And the glove I just brought in just to show people, basically. It's probably the most expensive part of the gear. Believe it or not, the glove can be, you pay what you want for a glove, but typically a good one's about 300 quid, you know, upwards. So, and it takes a long time to break those in and get them right.
And how much does a good bat cost?
Well, you could buy a wooden one for about $70. These ones are about 200. And then you can buy aluminium ones up to 600, you know. Really hit the ball with them. Now, we've two divisions, so they only allow wooden bats in the A League here, because you can hit the ball further with an aluminium bat.
Okay.
So the B Leaguers hit with the aluminium bats. So if you get a major leaguer hitting with an aluminium bat, it's home run time.
So how long has Baseball Ireland been in existence for?
Since 1995. We had some clubs back as far as 1992, the Greystone Mariners, but it's been kind of organised on a national level since then. So we've about just under 500 players involved, 12 teams, 6 in Dublin, 2 in Belfast, 2 in Clonus and 2 in Ashbourne. So spread over 2 divisions. So our big focus this year and next year is to grow the youth scene. We kind of had 150 kids playing the game last year.
From what age?
In 17. From kind of 7, 8 upwards to 12. That's kind of our youth category. And we've grown that from 150 to 222 this year, which is great. Now we have a strategic plan over the next 10 years for 2028 to try and grow the whole participation by about tenfold. So I think we're well on the way to doing that. We've got some good funding this year as well. The US is very supportive, of baseball. It's fantastic. Even today we've got the LA Dodgers organisation of 3 coaches in Ashburn. That's why I'm heading there after this, actually. They're doing an indoor training session for coaches and for kids and players.
Brilliant.
And a guy called Jesse Guffey leads that, with another guy called James Welbler and Tony Capuccio. I'm sure I haven't spelled or pronounced their names right, but we're very grateful for them coming over. These are guys with major league experience, training our coaches, so that's fantastic.
There's so much competition in this country with the big 3-4 sports between rugby, soccer, Gaelic football, hurling, and then there's a whole host of minority sports, and it feels as though then there's these American sports that are trying to make inroads. How difficult do you find it to get 7, 8-year-olds to pick up a baseball bat? And why are they picking up a baseball bat? Is there a certain type of youngster you feel that's attracted to the game?
Most kids want to swing a bat. The kids actually are easier to recruit than the adults are, but finding coaches is the problem for us. So next year we plan to run a schools program. I think the key to sustaining youth growth is try and get the schools involved, try and get some inter-school tournaments, a bit of competition. So we're running that with 4 schools up in Cavan and Monaghan, believe it or not, next year, and that's the plan.
So did you just go in, approach the schools, say, we will supply this?
Monaghan Sports Partnership, I've been kind of engaging with them, doing some coaching sessions. They said, listen, we've got 16 schools for you next year around the Monaghan Cavan area. I says, we won't get to all those, but would you run a tournament? And could you commit maybe to having 2 teachers from each school, learn the skills and learn how to coach? And that's the key to sustainability. So we got 4 to agree to that, so we'll see how that goes. And we've also got kind of quasi full-time coaches coming on board now for us with Baseball Ireland next year. So thanks to some fundraising we did in the States this year with Genesis Strategic Advisors, who raised a lot of money for us over there from supporters, which is fantastic.
Brilliant. So, and how did you get into playing baseball?
I was at a stag party in Galway.
We're all great things begin.
And they had a pitching machine as one of the 10 different sports you try out. Yeah. So I never held a baseball bat before, hit all 10, so I said I'd give it a go, and it's worked out well. So I've played a lot of baseball since then. I was back in 2012 and done a lot of coaching as well. So I was delighted to be asked to be a coach on the under-18 team this year in Italy, and so it's coaching is actually nearly the most rewarding aspect I find.
So you said that there's a very strong international aspect to baseball, that there's a good opportunity to go and represent Ireland around the world. It's the other level you're trying to look at, it's the base level to actually build up a good club network. So every Saturday, Sunday, every weekend, is there a club scene there at the moment?
There is from March, April through to the end of September. So we start a pre-season in February, then do some practice games, challenge games in March, and then it starts in early April, the league. And we have 2 divisions, so the A division plays 16-game league and then playoffs, and the B division play 18 games in the regular season. So it's most Saturdays and Sundays.
Where do you play?
Well, there's a couple of pitches, purpose-built ones. Corky Park is our oldest one here in Dublin.
Where's that?
Out in Clondalkin. And then we've got a brand spanking new international pitches, we're calling it, in Ashburn. We hosted the European Championships here this year, which was fantastic. Ireland won the C Pool division. So that was against like Greece, Slovenia, Norway, those type of teams. So they had a clean sweep of wins there, which was great. And we had about 1,200 at the final, which was just a remarkable crowd. Another 300,000 Facebook viewers that week. So we live streamed the games, had commentary. So it was it's a real professional operation, And it's just such a great carnival atmosphere. And we were lucky with the summer we had with the good weather in July. Just made it.
Is it very much a good weather sport?
Absolutely. Unfortunately we have to play through the rain here because we can't afford the luxury of cancelling games too easily, but it is.
What about you, Steve? I'd imagine, is it fairly straightforward to get a venue to play?
Yeah, rugby field for practice, unless you really, really have a great kicker, you don't necessarily need the post, but rugby fields and gaff fields are what we use. Now, rugby fields would be the vast majority because a gaff field is slightly too long. So if you're playing on one, you end up having to just play into one goal because obviously the set dimensions for American football fields, because everything's in yards and stuff like that. A rugby field on the other side is a little bit too short, so we end up knocking off 10 yards in the middle of the field. So, and then we have a field out in the National Arena, or in the National Sports Campus out there, which is just right, as they say. So, it's rugby fields. It isn't, the issue is obviously we don't own any of them. You're going
relying on
cap in hand, so you have to you have to have a good relationship with whatever club it is that is hosting you, So at the minute, most of the clubs. Some, we've got teams playing in college as well. So Trinity and UCD have teams, and they obviously have sports campuses for those colleges. Most of the rest of us are using whatever local council fields or rugby clubs that we can get into.
When we look at American football, obviously the NFL is what you look to first, and then there's such a strong college American football scene that again is watched worldwide. Yeah. Is there much of an amateur scene in American football in America?
Next to none. Now, I'm sure there'd be people going, I did it, but it'd be more than non-contact stuff. In America, for the vast majority, they're finished after high school. Unless you're going on to play in college, it's not an adult game.
Why?
It takes its toll. If you're playing for 8, 9, 10 years from, and there's, they don't really play at a senior level. They would play a lot. It'd be flag football, and we have flag football here as well, which is getting bigger and bigger again because you can get women involved, you can get younger.
So what's flag football essentially?
Flag football is
version
tag,
of tag rugby.
Yeah, it's tag. They've got the the belts with the tags on it, and it's all passing. I know a lot of our bigger guys who never get to touch the ball in a real American football field love flag football because suddenly they're throwing passes and catching them as well. But they just tend not to play because it's seen as the children's game, and by the end of high school, you've been playing for a long time. It is a sport that takes its toll, unfortunately. But again, high school levels there, we're aiming to get to that standard. You know what I mean? So it's unusual. Like, we'd get guys come over from the States and they have the almost same reaction as Irish people have. Oh, you play this, but here. Like, I know on my team now, and he'd be annoyed at me for giving out his age. The guy who plays centre for us is 41. So it's a different kind of sport here. We don't have the youth, and I think we've the same priorities. We don't have as much of the youth stuff because of the nature of the sport. You absolutely the coaching is a major issue, and we want guys. It's coach. You need a lot of coaches for American football because squads are quite big. If you have a good team, like we'd have 40 guys, 45 guys on our team, so you can't really do that with less than 6 or 7 coaches. It's very difficult because of the dual nature of the sport. It's offense and defense. Now, people do both, but to go and have a practice session trying to get kids involved, you need 3 and 4 or 5 people to run it. It's not like don't want to be dismissive to other sports, but it's not like where one guy can go down and run a whole session effectively. You know what I mean? And teach everybody the required skills.
So are you going into schools doing any coaching?
Yeah, it's going on now. They're expanding it next year. Our director of flag football is, because that's what we're looking to get kids involved in. Because it's a lot faster, it's a lot more high paced. You watch football on TV, what do you see? You see the guy throwing the ball and the guy catching the ball. That's what flag football is. So the schools program, it was going a couple of years ago. Our director of flag football's got it back up off the ground now, and we're going into 2019. We're looking to get schools again going. And
are schools quite welcoming?
I think to be honest, I think schools are just eager to have the kids do anything. Really, and they are welcoming. If you were going to come and provide, and the thing with football is the skill set is such that you have to teach them about the game as well as, and I'd say you've got to teach them the rules. It's not like here's a ball, there's the goal. It is you've got to teach them how to play the game and then the skills that go with it. So that is why the coaching side of it is so important. So schools are mad for it, but to learn enough to be able to coach it is the tricky part,
It is seen as sort of one of the lost skills as well for kids these days, the ability to catch a ball. Do you find that? I personally think that's a little bit over-exaggerated, right. But, obviously, you can talk all day about what kids are doing, that they should be outside playing, but I know to an extent, yeah, like it is something, and I think that's why schools are so eager to get involved, because they want their kids physically fit and active and all that kind of stuff. And so it's really, if you're providing something different, if you're providing a novelty, if you're providing, here's a special event, the kids get interested in that and they're all for it, 53106 is the text number if you want to get in touch. It is our Saturday panel, brought to you this afternoon with Screwfix.ie, championing the trade with a choice of over 20,000 quality trade products. Liverpool have gone 2-0 up away against Bournemouth, a second goal from Mo Salah. They're heading for the hour mark at the Vitality Stadium. 53106 or any of our social channels if you have any questions at all for any of the lads. Aaron, from an ice hockey point of view and recruitment and trying to get young people involved, because I'd imagine it's a brilliant sport for physical fitness if you can find an ice rink close to you. For those 10 months of the year where there's very little access, how do you go about recruiting youngsters, getting people involved?
Well, we leave a lot of that to the clubs themselves. The youth clubs will do a little bit of a local drive, bring your friend kind of thing. The senior teams kind of rely a bit more on social media to draw in players. I know this year, because we've just been accepted as full members of Sport Ireland, that we were at the National Indoor Arena, the big event they do there, where they have the little stalls for every sport. So that was the first time as we as an association kind of took part in one of those to really draw attention to the sport, and I think that went over very well. Setting up a net and letting people come down and take shots. So I suppose for us, and I suppose the other guys will probably concur, that in this day and age, social media is probably the biggest avenue for trying to recruit people.
So it's an awkward thing trying to convert, and I find, and we've found recently, because just talking about trying to get younger people involved, that the behaviour on social media is now starting to affect that too, because you don't get young people on Facebook. That we've had to start going, okay, now we need to start using Instagram, and what's going to be the next thing that they don't tell their parents they're using, so we can get in. And that's something that we've really noticed, like that for like an adult dominated sport, and it is like we're the same. The clubs are the ones who do all the work, trying to find the best way to recruit. You know, like you'd have clubs having turf wars because, you know, you're too close to us, but like, you know, nobody knew the sport existed until this guy saw this one ad on Facebook, you know, so it's tricky in its own right.
Where do you see ice hockey going in this country, Aaron? Like, if 10, 15 years' time, what's the dream for the sport? Are you in negotiations with the sporting authorities? Are you looking at capital grants programs to potentially build ice rinks, or do you feel you're always going to be just reliant on...
You name it, I've looked into it. So, I mean, look, we're currently trying to negotiate with to reopen the ice rink there in Dundalk. There's a purpose-built building up there that was an ice rink that closed in 2010. The local college up there, DKIT, owns the property, so we're trying to currently negotiate with them to reopen it. I've been or had some discussions with a local university in the greater Dublin area about building a large-scale project. But projects of that size and magnitude will take years. You know, usually with a lot of these big ones, there's just so many moving parts that it'll take time. I've spoken to Sport Ireland about putting a rink out on their campus, but running an ice rink is an expensive endeavor. It's not like just having a field where maybe you got to mow the grass every now and again. Running an ice rink is a fairly costly project, but if you do it right, it certainly can work. So we're constantly looking. I'm hoping, I know Department of Sport is launching this, what is it, large scale sports infrastructure program for 2019. So certainly I'm going to try to jump on that one and see if I can't get something done.
Yeah. You and everybody else, I think, seems to be the issue that's cropping up, because that scheme, I think, is going to be massively oversubscribed. Yeah. When you're looking at it, Adrian, then, and you're having, I don't know if you're talking to Sport Ireland about where baseball is and where you'd like to go and the sort of assistance that you need, like, what sort of conversations are you having?
Well, thankfully they're not about money, which used to always be about. We have some funding now, but it's interesting what the guys are saying, because one thing we found really effective this year was running baseball for beginners courses, because it just takes the expectation out of it. People go, oh, I don't want to go along and make a fool of myself. You know, you're going with people that are completely novice to the sport. They're learning the very basics, and one of the key skills to learn in baseball is actually throwing the ball. Most Irish people can hit the ball very well, in our experience, better than most other countries, strangely enough, with the bat. So, you know, it must be the genes. Must be the genes kicking in. So it's really just demystifying the rules and teaching them how to throw the ball without injuring their arm, basically, is the challenge. But in terms of working with sporting organisations, we found them very supportive, you know. And I think it's just about having a coordinated plan, which we do now, and trying to hit those key milestones each year as we grow.
What are the key milestones then that you're looking at over the next 5-10 years?
Well, it's basically growing the youth scene. So it's basically trying to get that number from, as it was, 400 players to 4,000 players by 2028. So it's a very clear objective. And it really comes down, I think, to building your coaching ranks, trying to get good coaches around the country, because it's a bit Dublin-centric. To try and develop the sport and sustain it. It's easy to start a club in some ways, but
I guess
to
there's
kind
a
of maintain
cascading
it.
effect as well, that the greater the base, the longer people stay within the sport, the more as they progress into their early 20s, they start looking at the coaching options, and that maybe in 10 years, as the numbers are greater, the number of coaches will build as well. And also, I guess then in 10 years, if you have 4,000, it's a lot easier to have conversations with Sport Ireland or whatever the relevant bodies when you've got a good base number.
That's right.
They're probably more willing to give you a bit more cash.
Absolutely. We are looking for sponsorship, so big shout out there.
Same as.
Everyone's looking for sponsorship.
The major thing, and just when because I echo that on coaches, that coaches as people are people who are volunteers. So all the sports need volunteers, and more people get involved, and that's why those coaches are generally people who say yes when you go, will you do this? And it might not be coaching, it might be a bit of admin, it might be a bit they'll go, yeah, I'll do that.
That's right. That's right. The other things, scorekeepers, umpires, there's all different sort of skills people can get involved that don't need to have ever played the game, but they can really help the organisation.
And we were down in Dolphin Rugby Club last night, and that point was being made about club rugby, that it's the social circle that you can become involved in if people don't want to play, but they can want to meet a group of like-minded people that are interested in baseball. Steve, from your point of view then, looking ahead to the next 5-10 years, and you mentioned that there is a pitch out in Abbottstown that you do have access to.
Well, it's the facility out there are awesome, and we have a set of posts and stuff like that. I know ourselves last year, I mentioned that about the rugby season running over, that we ended up needing to find a home to go to, and Abbottstown was there, and you pay for it, but it's out there and it's there to be used, and there's proper American football posts and all that kind of stuff. So, and the facilities out there are fantastic, but that's a luxury as a Dublin team that we had. You'd be in trouble now further down the country, in Mullingar and these places, if your field was out of commission. But it is something that, like he said, talking about the support, like we need 5 referees to have a game, so 4, but if 5 is the ideal, so the volunteers.
And would you generally have that?
Yeah. At our level, at the Premier level, you generally get the 5 referees. 4 if they're stuck, but 4 means people get away with things. But that's what I'm saying. So there's a lot of support needs to go into, and one of the things that I know is we find trying to get people up to the game and people up to watch, because it is an enjoyable game to watch. It is in a lot of ways, if you're ticked off by, if you're tuned into a sport like this, you're interested in those, okay, what's about to happen things. And the facilities to provide scoreboards, and the facilities to provide, like you were saying, commentators, because if you walk up to American football field, you've got a guy, throws a flag, waves his hands around. What did that mean? What's the score? Don't know. You know what I mean? That's really the step to get people, not only the people who are interested in the sport and would know what's happening, to actually get other people who can, because it is an enjoyable day out.
And part of the reason I think why American football is so popular is that the coverage is outstanding. The level of detail that they go into, you can be as nerdish as you want around the coverage.
And that's what I was saying earlier on. You get people who are supreme athletes. Like I remember we had a guy playing for us, and he came from rugby, and he did something great. We were like, great job, and he came up, why am I coming off? Because you got the ball back. We're going, And whereas you guys like me who are all about the X's and O's and that, and you almost find when you're watching other sports now and they're not covering it in that detail, like, no, tell me the stuff I want to know, so it is a very broad appeal, and that's trying to bring that to more people.
So before we wrap up, if people want to get involved in American football,
Facebook and Instagram, and the Irish American Football Association Facebook page. You'll get me if you contact us, and if you're wherever you are in the country, we've got teams in Cork and Limerick and Dublin and Mullingar and Galway and Belfast. There's somebody close to you, so you can get in touch there. And like I was saying, email.
Are you looking for anyone to just kick field goals?
Yes, that's trickier than people always say this because we do that a lot in Ireland. But try and do it with 11 guys coming at you wanting to absolutely murder you. And you've got 2.5 seconds to do it. It's not a Ron O'Gara, Johnny Sexton, 15-second walk up to it.
Yeah.
Adrian, if people are interested in baseball,
I guess the website and Facebook, baseballireland.com. If you want to get in touch with us, or Twitter at Baseball Ireland, and I think you'll find a lot of information about where we're close to you.
And Aaron, ice hockey.
Come down and try it.
Should have said that.
The best game going.
That's right, yeah.
It's the most, the hardest to master, but the funnest once you get to stand up on skates. So
do you want people to have a basic level of skating ability before they come down?
No. We run learn to play for kids and adults. So, you know, once you can stand up on two skates, it happens fairly rapidly after that. But you know, currently you can come down and check it out in the mornings, Saturdays in Blanchardstown, Sundays in Tala, Cork on ice, Saturdays and Sundays, same in Kilkenny. Facebook, our webpage, iiha.org. All that other, you know, crazy online stuff that I'm too old to understand, you know.
Can I just thank, for wrapping up, I just meant to thank the Ireland Fund as well, who helped us a lot raise that cash in the US, along with the Genesis Strategic.
You guys need to talk to the lads from baseball.
Yeah.
They seem to have the in. They seem to know where all the money is.
And finally, Peace Link and Clonus. And
their glove costs as much as the rest of our gear.
A lot of text coming in, on that actually. Kieran Boyle on Twitter, great to see these sports grow in popularity. At Adrian Kelly, are there enough facilities and fields other than Corker Park and Ashburn to grow the game of baseball in Ireland, and how big an issue is the availability of baseball equipment?
Well, I mentioned the Peace Link, so we have an all-weather pitch down there, which is for soccer, rugby and everything else, and it's floodlit. That's in Clonus actually. It's a huge pitch, 600 by 300, so we play baseball there. In Belfast we have a purpose-built pitch also, and we're trying to grow the scene in Cork. In terms of equipment, unfortunately it's the US or online sites in the Netherlands that we source the stuff from.
And if you just want to go down and test it out, I presume you don't need to have the full.
You don't need we'd supply all the gear you need.
The Ducks versus the Hawks in ice hockey. My God, it's Bombay versus Coach O'Reilly all over again, says Nisha. Hey guys, just wondering if there's any women's teams available to join here in Ireland in any of these sports.
Women's teams? Oh, absolutely. I mean, we've men and women playing on most of our teams actually. We've 4 women to play on the team in Clonus, for example.
Great.
Women tend to play flag football, but there's nothing stopping them playing the full thing if they want. Unfortunately, there's no females only
team right now.
Yeah.
We welcome all girls and women. This year in our cross-border cup for adults, we have an all-women's team called the Sirens. So they accept all comers.
All right, so there's plenty of options out there. Finally, chess has a huge playing population. We get no support because it's not recognised as a sport, which is a whole other issue.
Chess with wrestlers.
I'm a big chess fan, so I'd like some of that as well.
That's something we may come back to on a future Saturday panel. We have been covering chess quite a bit, I think, on OTBAM over the last few weeks.
Are on recently.
Exactly.
Yeah,
so
just over.
Thanks a lot for coming into studio today.
Thanks.
As I said, watch it back. If you missed the details, contact details, the panel will be up on offtheball.com very, very shortly. Liverpool now 3-0 up away against Bournemouth. They are going top of the Premier League. We're going to be talking to Gary Breen about that next.
My favourite family tradition, one that I haven't observed too often in recent years, has been climbing the Sugarloaf on St. Stephen's Day. Bracing, exciting, and exhausting.
I really can't stay.
But baby, it's cold outside.
Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year from News Talk.
The all-new Dacia Duster is more rugged, robust and even better looking. And from €149 per month, it's got the perfect figure too. It's the sort of car you'd swipe right on. The sort of car you'd do the dirt with. And by that I mean take it for a drive. Off-road. Light your fire for the all-new Dacia Duster. Visit your local Dacia dealer today. Finance is made under a hire purchase agreement. Terms and conditions apply. Deposit required subject to lending criteria. See dacia.ie.
In this week's Sunday Times, our critics named the top 100 albums of the year. Ray Connolly talks about his friend John Lennon, who died 38 years ago this weekend.